We're doing it live. Coming at you live all the way from the lower bottoms of West Oakland. This is Soundwaves with Bitter Lake. So we're going to start off by saying the good news about these podcasts. This kind of started off, you've heard me say it on these shows before, as a way to kind of stay engaged with people that follow us while we're not currently recording or while we are not. You might be hearing some noise. There is someone on the roof.
Some kind of construction going on.
If one, you know what we're going to do today, we're going to do something. We're going to, when this is over, we're going to do a video to show you where we do this so you can kind of get an idea of the crazy world that this show is filmed in. But anyway, this will be episode number 9. Last week we did our first show that wasn't with us. It was with our buddy Chris Riggins, who's going to have a weekly show called Fameless with Chris Riggins. He's going to have guests and all kind of other crazy stuff. And I also talked with our friend Ocean, who sings in the band Body Farm. Oh, nice. She's going to have her own show, a Bitter Lake Presents show as well. I don't think we have a title worked out yet for it. That being said, we are creating a lot of content and a lot of stuff we don't air on. Now we're on Spotify and YouTube. Yeah. We do have a Patreon page. Become a patron.
Get some bonus content.
You'll get all the bonus content, which has the crazy stories.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk more on the bonus content.
There's a lot
that
more
we wouldn't normally say on the show.
There's a lot more on the bonus content. Also, if you sign up, you get merchandise, Bitter Lake merchandise from us, and also you'll get live stream shows. Coming up this next month of March, I've been actually, again, this whole thing started as like a side thing for Alex and I to do, and we never knew it was going to take off like it is. Last week, we had Nora Barrows-Friedman on, who I actually put it on the Bitter Lake page. She just interviewed Abby Martin for the Electric Intifada, which Nora is a host on one of the shows, and I think she's the editor, the main editor. Anyway, we have the month of March is going to be filled with some pretty heavy hitters as far as professors and authors and activists and lawyers. I'm pretty stoked for what we have planned for March. So definitely, if you haven't done it already, become a patron, get all the bonus content, get all the live streams that we're going to be doing, get merchandise. I'm talking hoodies, the tees. You get music first if you become a patron, and it's only $5. So how cool is that?
It's fucking awesome.
Alex, did you watch any of the debates?
No, I was at work, unfortunately, so I could not.
Were you doing sound?
No. What was it? It was today, right?
It was yesterday.
Oh, it was yesterday? Yeah, I was working yesterday, too.
At night?
No, at the shop.
Yeah, it happens at night.
Oh. What was I doing? I don't know. I didn't watch it. I try to stay informed, but
that was too much information.
I had shit going on.
Try to stay informed. That was like way too much. I believe on the debate stage was Joe Biden, of course, Bernie Sanders, billionaire Tom Steyer, billionaire Mike Bloomberg.
I don't think I would have made it through. I think I would have turned it off if I was watching. That shit
out of anger?
Yeah, it usually just pisses me off, and I'm like, fuck this.
Like pisses you off, like how?
Because it's just nonsense, and you know when they do that thing where they don't actually answer the question, and they're like, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for asking that question. You're a very handsome man. You know, and like just don't even answer the question at all. Just bullshit for until their time's up.
The questions were really like tripping me out because I thought the questions were pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah,
Like they never.
They always are.
And also too, I don't understand why a debate for president of the United States is moderated by mainstream media, like corporate news.
Yeah.
I'd rather have like regular citizens ask questions because we're talking about the person that's supposed to govern over regular citizens.
I would absolutely watch that if that was the case.
Like regular, like, hey, this is Joe the fucking teacher.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Ask questions about shit that's going to affect your life, you know?
Yeah, that's going to affect the people opposed to asking questions that are to cater to the corporate sponsors for said station.
Yeah.
If you know, Bernie Sanders called that out in the first debate where he said, on this channel there will be healthcare commercials.
Right.
You know, because they were asking him, you know, this is a Democratic debate, but they're asking right-wing talking point questions about how are you going to pay for it. Which is always the question when you have a healthcare plan. Any plan that they're rolling out that is a huge change to the status quo, the first question is how you're going to pay for it.
Right.
And it's always, besides it being framed as like a slacker thing, like healthcare for all, you lazy slacker.
Yeah.
Free college.
How are you going to do that?
Yeah, free college. What kind of lazy slacker doesn't want to saddle themselves with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt?
Right.
You slacker. Like, that whole argument getting thrown out and knowing that these people are part of a system that, you know, makes money on these industries. And when someone comes in and says, well, I want to make these industries... When we say the word free, I mean, it's not totally free. Tax dollars are definitely going to pay for that.
Sure.
But much like FDR did with his New Deal policies in the late 30s and 40s, Bernie Sanders is saying he wants to do by taxing billionaires more money.
Right.
And there's something to be said about taxing billionaires because it almost seems like it's... these billionaires are going on the news and talking like they're being shamed. Like I heard one guy said, this is just billionaire shaming. I can't remember which host it was. Like,
fuck you.
Like you can make
You
an
should be
ethical,
shamed.
you can make an ethical billion. You know, the tax havens you're a part of.
Yeah.
The policy that you're a part of, the underpayment of workers that you're a part of, you know, and now we're seeing more philanthropic money going through with charity organizations, and Jeff Bezos says I'm going to donate, was it $10 billion or something like that to help with the environment. It's like, but you're hurting the environment,
Right.
you know, with your company.
Sure.
You're not paying livable wages to people. Like, I get you're trying to mitigate some of the damage that you do, but you can't. You know, it's like
when you're just doing the bare minimum. I mean, that for him is not a whole lot of money, right?
I mean, $10 billion is $10 billion, right?
Sure.
You know, yeah, granted, it's not going to break his bank. No.
That's what
no.
I'm saying. Yeah, it's not going to kill him.
But bigger than that, it's like, let me mitigate some of my damage by doing this good by doing good.
Right.
And maybe one of the easier ways to kind of explain how that happens is I had a friend today post something, and it was these black kids at this school. I want to say it's University of Texas Arlington, and their basketball team was wearing these jerseys that had famous, I don't want to say controversial, but like black people that aren't kind of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. So on their jersey, one kid said like, I stand with Kaepernick or something like that. And another jersey said like, power to Patrice Lumumba, who was the first democratically elected president of the Congo, who was killed in a CIA-backed coup. I'll put a link to that in the description of the show, and it really did happen in 61 or 62. I can't remember off the top of my head. And that's cool and all, but I don't really like when people try to mass market rebellion or revolution or a movement.
Sure.
Because then you kill the rebellion, the revolution, or the movement, and it doesn't become a movement. It's just a shirt.
Right.
So
Just selling shirts.
I don't know if you remember, God, maybe it was like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even less than that. The owner of the Los Angeles Clippers was caught on a phone conversation using the N-word when describing, I want to say, Magic Johnson, because like his girlfriend at the time was screwing around with Magic Johnson. And, or no, she was like with Magic. I don't think she was screwing around with him. I think she was just hanging out with him at a party. And he was like, I don't want you to hang around with like nigger or whatever, right?
Wow.
And then more information came out about him, and he had owned, like, he was kind of a slumlord, basically. He didn't want black people living in his buildings. He'd put a C on their application for colored, so they would know that a colored person was trying to move into their buildings. Not a good guy. All this information comes to light. I want to say the Clippers were in the playoffs, and then people started looking at the players.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing but black guys on the team. What are you guys going to do? And they turned their jerseys inside out during a warm-up. And that was like their way of protesting.
What's that supposed to do?
Nothing. It does nothing. It literally does nothing. I believe the NBA ended up taking the team from Daniel Sterling because someone else owns the team now, I believe. But it's stuff like that. It's the wearing the shirt that says I can't breathe. There becomes no real movement because those guys, number one, are so divorced from policy prescriptions, and they're so divorced from movements. Right. So the only way you know how to fix these problems is with capitalism and spectacle. You know, I'll wear a hoodie because Trayvon Martin got killed and bow my head, and I'll say some nice words, and I'll donate money to a school, or I'll open up a charter school. I'll do something that will hopefully mitigate some of this damage, but I'll never fight for policy that'll give some just fairness to all these kids in these poor neighborhoods. And the best example I've heard, Arthur Anand Giridharadas, who I'm going to read a quote from in a little bit, actually had a great, he was with LeBron James at LeBron James' school in Akron, I believe. I believe that's where LeBron's from. LeBron James opened a school in Akron and actually made it a public school, not a charter school. And it's a great public school. If the kids don't have any food, they give you some food to take home. Cool. If you don't have a way to wash your clothes, there's washers and dryers in there. Cool. If your parent can't, if they're having difficulty with a social service, i.e. SNAP benefits, Section 8 housing, welfare, if they're having an issue with it, there's a counselor in there that will help your parent navigate through the system.
That's cool.
Is it? That school will help only a few hundred kids in the community. Go to any other school in that city.
Well, I mean, I think that's cool in that I think all schools should do that.
To that point, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
When you lobby and say, okay, hey, this is my school that I funded.
Yeah.
It's a public school, but it's only going to help a small subset of kids in this community.
Sure.
The majority of kids in this community are still going to go to the fucked up schools. Their parents aren't going to have any help navigating through these social systems. So I'm LeBron James. I have the power to kind of do a documentary to show the juxtaposition between a regular school in Akron and my school in Akron. And I have the money to push for candidates that'll have we'll have a better school board.
Sure.
Maybe we can change the way we fund schools. I can push for that now, but they don't. They get the school and they're done. They've done their due diligence.
Right.
The 200 kids, the 100 kids that they're going to help with their school is it.
Right. Okay.
Not to say that these people are saying fuck the other 100,000 kids in the city. They're definitely not saying that.
Right.
But that doing good by doing good mentality with my charity isn't helping everyone, and it's not going back into making the system better.
Right, and he's not trying to branch out to help any other schools.
Well, just help the system. Because that's what, ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to fix these broken systems that we always complain about.
Totally.
And we're not going to fix them with charity, because that's just one person's whim and what they want to do. And that's the whole thing about doing good to do good. And when you have these, T-shirts with these black people's names on them, my first question was, okay, and then what?
Right.
Like, what does that do?
Right.
Someone's making money on them. These kids are wearing them. They're modeling. There's a whole story about, are they getting any money from it? Is there a foundation set? Like, what is the motive behind that other than to sell T-shirts?
Right.
And we can't solve problems with poverty with more capitalism.
Right.
Fred Hampton said, we can't solve capitalism with black capitalism. There's a lot of truth in that. Yeah. And I don't think people really understand that. They're trying to solve their capitalism problems with a lot more capitalism. Totally. And then, getting mad that the system is still broken for the vast majority of us.
Right.
And when you have, going to the presidential debate, you had 2 billionaires on stage that literally bought their way on to the stage. Yeah. And where Tom Steyer, one of the billionaires, has a much better record as a human being than Mike Bloomberg. I mean, he still has a tainted record. He's a billionaire. He did make a significant amount of his money with investing in private prisons. So, where Tom Steyer has a good record in making black banks and making sure, investing in black communities, and he wants to invest in historically black colleges. I believe in my heart that that's something that he is going to do, whether or not he's president. That's something he wants to do if he is president.
Yeah.
He has an environmental policy. That's kind of been his bailiwick. He really does want to do things for the environment, but how did he hurt the environment with his private prison investing? Is he trying to mitigate some of the damage he's done with these charitable efforts? And that's where the doing good to do good, the give one, get one, I suggest, and I'll put a link to the book, and I'll put a link to some videos. Anand Giridharadas' Winners Take All. I just finished. Great book that literally explains that. It's a journalistic look into the philanthropic world. He first talks to a young girl out of school and asks her, she wants to change the world, and she has a choice. She can either kind of get into politics, or she can go work for McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, and she goes and works for, I think it's either McKinsey or Goldman Sachs. I don't remember off the top of my head. And it's, he juxtaposes that to like Bill Clinton. It's like Bill Clinton was a great mind coming out of Yale, and he wanted to change the world, so he got into politics, and that's how you change the world. Now young people want to change the world, and they want to create an app. So again, the system remains broken.
Right.
And to kind of really tell us how broken the system is, 2 billionaires are on the stage running for president. This is a quote from Anand Giridharadas, who was on Democracy Now! This morning. He says, running to replace a self-described billionaire who actually probably isn't one, speaking of Donald Trump. Let's just stick with the physical scene that you just showed those shots of. So he had seen a shot of the presidential debate stage. And on the edges, one side was Tom Steyer, billionaire, and the other side was Mike Bloomberg, billionaire. And in the middle was Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, and the odious Pete Buttigieg, who I hate more than anything.
It's a little billionaire sandwich.
You never had a billionaire sandwich? 15 shots of, because I think it's a metaphor for what I have called the billionaire election, or the billionaire referendum that 2020 is. So you got these 7 people on stage. on two ends are actually billionaires. The two candidates in the middle, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, are candidates who have risen to prominence precisely on the platform of running against billionaires and the idea that billionaire power is excessive and is suffocating the American dream for people. Then you have the $1,700 to $3,200 tickets, which captures the way in which the Democratic Party is an ostrich, not understanding that we live in an age in which people are actually rising up against plutocracy. And this is the kind of, foot fault that you don't want to make. And then you have, CBS, the big corporation, hosting the debate. Twitter is collaborating. That's owned by a billionaire. Billionaires are the stewards, the captains of an economy that has generated so much of the rage this year that is presenting itself in the election. What do you think about that one, Alex?
I can't really imagine how any of the American people would vote for one of these billionaires. Like, they clearly do not have your best interest in mind.
We just put one in office.
That's true. That's true.
And he ran on the guys. He ran on the platform of, I know what's best for you. I am part of the swamp.
Right.
Therefore, I know how to play in the dirty water.
Yeah, but how's that working out for us now?
It's working out for us horribly.
Right. So, I think now, I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know how the majority of the people in this country think about all this. I just look at this and I'm using my common sense. And, like, why would I vote for somebody like that who bought their way into the race? Why wouldn't I vote for someone who's been working their ass off for their entire life to start movements? I don't know. That just seems logical to me.
Giridharadas goes on to say, and so this is an election in which you have to have a stand. You have to know where you stand on the question of billionaires in order to vote in this primary and in the general election. If you don't have a perspective on billionaires, you can't actually make this choice meaningfully, because for very long in this country, the story that we have been told about billionaires is that they are like helium balloons. They're just people who happen to have drifted up from among the rest of us. That's been the story. And yes, they had more, and maybe the gap was a little too high, but they were just people who drifted up. And maybe if we could get more people a little helium and drift them up, then we'd all be better off.
Okay, well, it's not like what have you done to help out your fellow man?
Well, they contribute with their philanthropic, like I was saying before.
Right.
They mitigate their damage with their philanthropic charities.
Right.
A new story is emerging, a truer story, which is that a lot of these folks, and certainly that class of people, is up there because they are standing on other people's backs. And they stand on people's backs by using and abusing tax havens like Bermuda. Hello, Bloomberg. They stand on people's backs by profiting from an economy like the financial sector that has destroyed the American dream for so many people. Hello, Michael Bloomberg. They stand on people's backs by lobbying for bottle service public policy that is of private benefit to them but detrimental to the public.
Yeah.
And I think Americans are actually waking up to the fact that we have been living in this, what I call this winners take all America, in which the country is not being run for Americans, it is being run for money. What do you think?
People just need to wake up and just realize, like, these guys aren't trying to help you. They're even Donald Trump clearly is a puppet. He is a fucking puppet
For
large corporations. Who,
think so?
I think so. He's not helping me. He's not helping
what
you.
corporation?
I guess everyone that he's all these new policies and all these new bills that he's signing are directly helping, fossil fuel industries and large banks.
You can say that about Barack Obama.
Yeah.
You can say that about Bill
It
Clinton.
This election seems, or this election, sorry, this administration seems pretty extreme about it. I mean,
The Clinton administration is the one that repealed Glass-Steagall. That was the firewall between investment banks and regular banks that brought us the 2008 housing crisis. So, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying
I'm not saying those people weren't puppets either. You know,
are they puppets, or are they part of a class of politicians that, like, for example, when you hear the fight against health care for all, which has been Bernie Sanders' main thing, right?
Right.
And now you have 4 members of Congress, and there's quite a few people running for Congress that are in Congress that are on a Medicare for all platform. Right. I volunteer for Shahid Buttar, who's on a Medicare for all platform. Right. Nancy Pelosi is against Medicare for all, wholly against Medicare for all. Pete Buttigieg talks about Medicare for all that want it, which doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
No,
and the argument starts like this. If you give Medicare for all, you're going to kick all these Americans off their health care coverage, and Americans love their health care coverage. First of all, I've never met a person that loved their insurance. If you and I talk about car insurance, we never go, oh, I fucking love Progressive.
Right, yeah, totally.
When I went on Hold, their Hold music is like Megadeth. Like that's never the conversation that we have. I've never met anyone that loved their insurance company. Totally. So first and foremost, nobody loves their insurance company.
Totally.
If you have a copay, fuck your insurance company.
Yeah.
If someone's telling me, you no longer have a copay, if someone's telling me I can walk into a hospital, get checked, walk the fuck out, why is that a bad thing?
Yeah, why would anybody be against that?
So, I think I told you about this, and I want to say this on air, and I don't think he'll mind. I won't say his name. I had a buddy. There was a post going around a couple days ago. It's finally kind of stopped, but it was a post that was saying that Bernie Sanders' health care plan was going to tax the lowest wage earners the most, 52% or some crazy number like that. It was all made-up figures. None of it was real. And people were sharing it left and right. And one person I knew shared it, and I responded back that these numbers aren't real. Mm-hmm. Here's his plan, right. And they're their actual numbers. And before I can even write that, there were a couple comments that were like, anyone that votes for Bernie Sanders is so stupid. Look what he's going to do to the economy. She posted it again. So I responded again.
Yeah.
And then she stopped posting it. Then another friend of mine, who I'm actually very close with, posted it. Again, same thing. If you vote for Bernie Sanders, you're so stupid. And then there was a whole conversation about taking his gun away, which was weird. And then immediately he had a couple friends post Bernie Sanders' actual plan. And they even said, I'm not saying vote for Sanders. I'm just saying this ain't true.
Right.
And so I said the same thing. And he goes, well, I'm all in for Trump, man. If you don't want to be my friend because of that, then fine. And I said, I can't be your friend because of that. Because if you support Trump, you support racist policies.
Yeah.
And he was like, you really are like whatever kind of attitude.
Yeah.
But, this dude's going to take my gun away, and that's not cool. I was like, first of all, that's not true. I literally wrote the Second Amendment is sacrosanct. I think that's a word we should start using more when we talk about the Second Amendment. It's going nowhere.
Yeah.
People may try to regulate things, but as far as taking away that privilege, it's too much.
Yeah.
Was there 65 million guns? Who the fuck's going to take them away?
Yeah.
Who's going to have that task to walk into people's houses and be like, oh,
yeah,
President Sanders said no more guns?
We're here for your guns. Please don't shoot me.
Whatever. Not going to happen. And I was like, if you support Donald Trump, you support children in cages.
Yeah.
You support the subjugation of women.
Yep.
You support just racism wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And if that's the way you roll, we can't be friends. I don't wish you ill. I don't hope anything bad happens to you. We just can't be friends.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And he texted me, man, are you serious? Yes, brother, I'm serious. We can't be friends. He goes, you think I'm a racist? I said, racism is not yelling nigger with a hood on.
Right.
Or calling a Mexican a wetback. Or saying fucked up shit to an Arab.
Yeah.
When you support racist policies, that's being racist. Racism is a system.
Yeah. You're hurting another race of people
by supporting these policies.
Yeah.
He calls me. He goes, what the hell are you talking about, man? Kids in cages? What is this? What are you talking about, man? I don't really follow politics that much. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he didn't know, huh?
He didn't know. And so I said, look, dude. He goes, Jason, you're one of the smarter guys I know that says less about me and more about the people he knows. Let's just get that out there first and foremost. Let me get that clear. That's why I have smart people on this show. Because fuck that shit. Yeah. So I was like, hey, man, there's some fucked up policies. And they're all not Donald Trump, but he has exacerbated said policies. He goes, what are you talking about, kids in cages? So I was like, look. And I was working at the time.
Yeah.
I paused what I was doing, pulled into a parking lot. I was like, let me drop this one order off, and I'm pulling the parking lot. We're gonna have a brief history on the U.S. involvement in Latin America since the Monroe Doctrine.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's the Monroe Doctrine? And you know, I'm not going to give you the academic breakdown. I'm going to give you the homie breakdown.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of curse words. And this motherfucker said, and that's how the bitch. So basically, we talked about, border policy.
Right.
Now. Yeah. And I was like, it started with Obama. Mm-hmm. Anything you were doing illegal when you were crossing the border, they could separate you and your family. So if you are coming over the border and your mom's got a kilo of blow in her snatch, which is amazing because that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a crazy snatch your mom has. Your mom is a magician. Let's get that straight. But, you know, they were going to separate you and your mom because there's illegal activity. If you're bringing in kids to sell them to pedophiles.
But it wasn't really as enforced in the Obama administration. From
well, the law changed to it being a felony to cross the border when Trump put very, 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 very racist Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General, the U.S.'s most important cop in that position. That's when that whole thing got exacerbated. And now anyone crossing the border is committing a felony, so we can separate you. And that's how it grows. So that's how you get kids in cages. And that's when I was explaining to him. I was like, he goes, well, I thought that whole thing at the border was over. I was like, no. The Intercept had a whole article about a month ago that said there was like 4,000 or 5,000 more child separations.
Yeah.
He goes, really? He goes, so it's just not. Oh, I was like, you thought they all got reunited with their parents?
Yeah. Why? Because it's not on the news anymore.
And he was like, yeah. He goes, I was like, he didn't understand military spending. Mm-hmm. He thought when the military budget gets increased that the soldiers get a bunch more money. And I was like, I could see how that thought process would work, but we're talking about more tanks, man. We're talking about more planes, we're talking about more drones.
Right.
We're talking about the ability to maybe recruit more soldiers, but we're not talking about them having more stuff. I mean, we're defunding the Veterans Administration to build a border wall, to build more of these little holding facilities for brown kids coming across the border. And then I had to explain us overthrowing governments in Central America. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people don't understand when they have their Trump-loving friend or family member is people don't understand the U.S. involvement in Central and South America when it comes to dirty wars and overthrowing democratically elected presidents.
Right.
You know, 9/11 in, was it Argentina or Guatemala? I always get those two mixed up. I want to say it was Argentina because that's where Pinochet was, right? Anyway, we killed their democratically elected leader during the Nixon administration because he wanted to nationalize mines. And that whole Red Scare of socialism, and this guy wasn't even, he wasn't Castro by any stretch of the imagination. And he literally got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And a dictator got put in place that was U.S. friendly.
Right.
The same thing happened in the Congo with the murder of Patrice Lumumba. There's a long history of democratically elected people getting put into office, us overthrowing that regime and putting in a U.S. puppet, which is why the U.S. hates Cuba so much, because it never happened there. And why the U.S. hates Venezuela so much, because it never happened there.
Right.
Literally, in Venezuela, a guy just called himself president, Juan Guaido. The man that Donald Trump says, we see the president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido.
Yeah.
Juan Guaido got pelted with so much shit trying to go back to Venezuela because they kicked his ass out. There's people that oppose the Maduro government because the Maduro government is definitely not the Chavez government that lifted so many people out of poverty. The Maduro government is not handling things well, but the Maduro government is a complicated government because you also have pretty much a U.S. embargo that's turned into a Western embargo where Venezuela can't access their money.
Yeah.
And they can't even get like penicillin and shit like that into the country because we're not letting it in. So people are literally dying because of the sanctions that we have on places like Venezuela.
Right.
There was an attempt on Maduro's life where he was giving a speech and his military shot down a drone. And you see him like jump like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because a drone was coming to fucking shoot him.
Damn.
That's U.S. foreign policy in a nutshell.
Right.
And explaining that to my buddy, he's like, well, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Those people,
Yeah.
I don't need to know everything about them. I just want them to rule themselves. I was like, exactly. Because you know what happens if they rule themselves and shit's cool? They don't want to come up here.
Yeah.
But when you give them a shit situation, guess where they're going to want to go? They're going to want to go north.
Well, they're going to want to get out of where they are. And
when you destroy industries with bills like NAFTA,
mm-hmm.
when you destroy the agriculture industry in Mexico, where are they going to go?
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to understand that and not just assume that they're here to steal our jobs or whatever. I mean, a lot of them are running for their life.
Mm-hmm.
And, the humane thing to do would be to help them out. And that we are not doing that at all.
No, we created the problem.
Yeah.
And we're exacerbating the problem by separating these people from their families.
Yeah.
And throwing them in cages and not letting them have shampoo and soap and babies, making babies as young as 3 months stand trial.
And there was a lice outbreak, there was a flu outbreak. Weren't they like shaving little kids' heads and shit because they all had lice?
It was horrible. He didn't know that.
Yeah.
He goes, I didn't know any of this. And then he was asking me some questions about Bernie Sanders, and I was like, look, man, socialism may sound like a bad word, but ultimately what Bernie Sanders is trying to do isn't Stalinist Russia.
Yeah.
We're talking FDR New Deal policy.
Yeah.
And basically he's trying to democratize power.
Right.
And I was like, if you have health care tomorrow, you can now go to your boss and be like, hey, man, that money you were taking out of my check for health care, nah, I need more money, man.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, man, that would help me out so much. I was like, exactly.
Yep.
Now think about if you could go back to school.
Yeah.
Or think about if you decide to have children.
Yeah.
And you want to send them to school. They can go to a state school or a trade school.
Yeah.
And now Bernie Sanders just rolled out his daycare plan.
Yep.
In France, when you have a kid, you get a social worker, and they hook you up with the whole daycare and...
Right.
I don't understand why people are against these policies, because nobody balks when we spend another $700 billion on an overbloated military.
Right.
No one balks. People throw their hands up, maybe, but no one says a fucking word. No one says a word about Afghanistan, and that's after the Afghanistan papers have come out,
Right.
that have showed us that a bipartisan effort to stay in war for so long, there are kids that are fighting that were born into war
Yeah.
that we literally don't know how to get out of, and we don't know what we're doing there. Literally.
Yeah, we don't.
Totally have destabilized the region,
Yeah.
created so many more quote-unquote terrorists.
Yeah.
So many more quote-unquote terrorists.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I don't think people really understand when you want to have a president come in with a real foreign policy plan to not just give Israel a fuck ton of money to imprison Palestinians.
Yeah.
You know, to not just want to go fight foreign wars, but maybe use that military for real humanitarian efforts.
Yeah.
And that's what's so shocking to me, that people don't really understand that. And I'm not going to throw this dude under the bus and be like, fuck you. I said it politely.
Yeah.
And some people will be like, you're wasting your time. We talked on the phone for probably about an hour. He thanked me. He ordered Richard Wolff's book, Understanding Socialism.
Cool.
And, you know, read a bunch of things I wrote about corporate socialism and the problems with that.
That's cool. That definitely doesn't sound like a waste of time. It sounds like you explained some shit to your friend who just didn't know.
And I also told him, I was like, I'm not asking you to believe everything I believe. I just want you to get an understanding of what you think you hate.
Yeah, totally.
And when you understand that someone's trying to, and he goes, so Bernie Sanders is just trying to make shit better for people, huh? I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And people kind of laugh at you like, it sounds like you're explaining it to a fourth grader. It's like, you can belittle it to that, but stop thinking that people don't look at politics from a fourth grade perspective.
Yeah.
When we're watching this presidential debate, we're not watching the candidate that's going to help us, because it's not presented to us as a candidate that's going to help us.
Right.
It's presented to us by corporate media.
Yep.
They have corporate sponsors.
Yeah.
And here are your corporate candidates. They're going to toe the corporate line.
Yeah.
And they're all saying things that doesn't really affect too many. Like, if you listen to the questions they were asking, what do you think about health care for all? Well, I think it's crazy and you can't pay for it and it's going to cost too much money. What I want to do is keep Americans broke with hospital bills. And that's ultimately what they're saying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that just want things normal and status quo.
Yeah.
That's why there are people that are like, I like Amy Klobuchar. I like Pete Buttigieg. He reminds me of Obama. People just want to go back to brunch. They liked Obama because they didn't have to think about things. And when you tell people, like, well, what about Obama's drone policy? What about Obama's deportation policy? He was called the deporter-in-chief.
Huh.
Then they kind of look at you like, well, that's not what CNN and MSNBC told me.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe people just... I don't know. Maybe people, with more money, think that things are all right now, or they're so distracted by whatever else is going in their life. They're not thinking in terms of, like, you know, helping out society, I guess, because it's just not something they think about.
No, because if you can scratch up enough money to pay for your kid to go to school, and they can get grants and financial aid, and you can give them a few $100, if you can pay for your medical bills until, God forbid, you have a debilitating disease, or God forbid you have to take on a relative that's ill, you just don't care.
Yeah.
I can tell you for a fact, I used to make about $200,000 a year. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Until policies that I didn't care about were put into place that helped me make money ended up destroying me.
Yeah.
When Glass-Steagall gets repealed, yeah, I made a bunch of money, but I also lost everything when the financial industry crashed.
Yeah.
And there was no safety nets for me.
Right.
Because the government didn't want to do anything for people that were losing their homes. And a lot of people lost their homes.
Yeah.
West Oakland, Oakland in general, San Francisco in general, didn't look like it did before 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I can't walk anywhere when I'm working in Oakland without somebody asking me for money.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, unless I'm in a really nice neighborhood, I got to see people living in their car.
Yep.
I pulled up to do a delivery, to pull up to get something at McDonald's to drop it off.
Yeah.
And there was a dude living in the McDonald's parking lot.
Yeah.
Next to the McDonald's parking lot, they're building Tesla charging stations. How long do you think it's going to be before they get security guards there? And that dude can't live under the well-lit McDonald's parking lot.
Totally. Yeah.
And then he's got to move to that dark alley.
Yeah.
Because God forbid the Tesla people that are charging their cars have to look at you.
Yeah. Totally.
That to me is America.
Yeah.
If we're not talking about that America, what the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah.
Aaron Glantz, a journalist from out here in the Bay Area, wrote a great book called Home Wreckers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the middle of it right now. It's a long book, but he goes in depth on the housing crisis. And one story, and this story to me is such an American story.
Mm-hmm.
An older man and his wife are constantly watching TV for old people. So let's, real quick.
Okay.
TV gives you ads per demographics, right?
Yeah, depending on what time.
I watch a lot of old people true crime. I grew up with my grandma. You know, a treat for me when I was a little kid was sitting in the bed with her watching TV, old movies.
Mm-hmm.
I just still love true crime and old shit because of her, so I can watch certain shows forever.
Yeah,
The only
watch a lot of garbage.
I watch a lot of garbage. He's not lying. I watch a lot of garbage. I'll take that L. I'll take that L and wear it with pride.
I do too, but a different kind of garbage, I suppose.
So, watching this, the demographic is older people because all I see is Colonial Penn commercials, reverse mortgage commercials.
Mm.
These old people, this whole family watch these reverse mortgage commercials, and they always have someone on there that's advertising the product that's someone that these people grew up with.
Mm.
And James Garner was the guy that was on the commercial that these people watched all the time.
Okay.
And so the mom was suffering from early onset Alzheimer's, and the dad had like dementia and diabetes and all kind of conditions from just kind of smoking and not living the best life. But he was taking care of his wife. Knew he needed help with that. Mm-hmm. So he saw these ads for reverse mortgage. James Garner's advertising it. James Garner would never advertise anything that was bad, right? This is the world these people come from. Calls up, a salesman comes to their door and sells them on a reverse mortgage.
I already know where this is going.
The way reverse mortgage works is you have to have so much equity in your home. Okay. Depending on the equity that you have in your home, you can get paid your equity and not have to make a payment until you die or you sell your home. So you know the way, you know what equity is, right? It's
so they're slowly buying the house back from you, basically.
No.
No?
So if you refinance your house or get an equity loan, you know what equity is, right? Equity is the amount your house is worth minus what you owe.
Okay.
So if you owe $100,000 on your house and your house is worth $300,000, you have $200,000 worth of equity.
Right. However much you've already put into it.
Not put into it. It's just
No.
what it's worth to what you owe.
Okay.
So that has nothing to do with what you put into it.
Gotcha.
You could buy a house and get equity. It's just what the market says it's worth.
Okay.
We're not going to get into a conversation about markets. I'm not a big fan of markets. I'm a Marxist. I hate markets. So that's equity, right? Equity is the difference. What you owe, what it's worth. That difference is equity.
Sure.
I have a $300,000 house. It's worth $300,000. I owe $100,000. I have $200,000 worth of equity. A reverse mortgage says, hey, Alex, I can pay you a percentage of that equity. You'll have to pay it back, but you won't pay it back in your lifetime unless you sell this property or you leave it for some reason. Now, that reason could be a good one, like you fucking go to hospice.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Or you have to move in with a family member because you can't take care of yourself anymore. There's very good reasons why you would have to leave the house. And maybe you can't sell it.
Sure.
Maybe when you got the loan it was worth $300,000 and now the market tanked, it's not worth $300,000. It may not be worth the money they're going to take.
Sure.
Now, what they don't tell you is you get a loan for $50,000. You still have some equity left, but they're going to charge you so much in quote unquote interest and other charges. They're going to come out of that.
Okay.
The loan fees, their quote unquote interest charges. So when it's all said and done, you may have no equity if you have to get out of that house.
Right.
Because they will get their money back.
So, of course.
Because you're going to die.
Yeah.
You have to be, actually also too, you have to be over 65 to get one.
Okay. So it's a pretty safe bet for them.
Yes. And it's not well regulated whatsoever.
Right.
So the guy gets the reverse mortgage, doesn't tell his daughter. He gets very ill. And his daughter has to come live with her parents. She's older. She's working. But now a lot of her time has to be spent with her parents. To the point where she's like, maybe I should hire someone to help me.
Right.
And I can't necessarily afford it, but my parents have some money. Her mom had like a pension or something like that, like some money saved up.
Okay.
The dad ended up dying. So now the daughter had to take care of the mom full time. Dad, who was taking care of his wife, he's gone. Now the daughter's like, well, I can refi the house. We only owe $100,000. It's worth $300,000. We can refi the house, pull some money out, and we can hire a caretaker to help me with mom, who, unfortunately she has Alzheimer's. It's a lot to take care of.
Yeah.
She finds out, dad didn't tell me he got a reverse mortgage. How the hell did you have my mom sign when she doesn't know what day it is?
Yeah.
How the hell did you have my dad sign this when he was on his deathbed?
Yeah.
The guy that sold them their reverse mortgage was no longer even in the business after like a couple of years. He had sent them a letter because he had got into the vitamin selling business.
Jesus
He was
Christ.
just a salesman,
Yeah, of course.
right? Not a financial planner,
Sure.
not an economist.
Yeah.
He's just a salesman. So now this young lady is like, well, and I'm not going to give the exact amount because I don't know off the top of my head. We're going to use these numbers from the $100,000. Well, there's equity. You only gave my parents $50,000.
Right.
And the bank's like, or the people that own the mortgage now, which isn't necessarily a bank, it's like investors.
Yeah.
They're like, you owe us like $280,000. You don't have any equity.
What? Because of the interest?
Yeah, all the fees and all the charges. Like,
Jesus.
your dad knew this. He signed the paperwork.
Yeah.
My dad was on his deathbed, and he just needed some relief
Yeah.
from, trying to take care of my mom.
Yeah.
And you're telling me there's nothing you can do? This woman fought this for like 6 years. And finally she lost.
Shit.
Keep in mind, back to the presidential election, if we're telling this is the story of America.
Yeah.
The judges that she had to see in this case were right-wing judges appointed by the Bush administration.
Ouch.
I'm not going to say they were in the pocket of the mortgage industry, but the financialization of America that Giridharadas talked about in that quote has a lot to do with the fact why these judges just didn't give a fuck about this woman.
Yeah.
Even though in court, a doctor, because the girl's like, my mom literally has Alzheimer's. She had no idea what she was signing.
Yeah.
This man came here, sold a dream to my dad, who was barely hanging on, and my dad just told my mom to sign wherever, which is fucked up.
Right.
This should be null and void.
Right.
The investment company, who's owned by Steve Mnuchin,
Yeah.
and Michael Dell, I believe, was the owner in this. I forget the name of the company. I'll put a link to it in the description. They hire a expert doctor who said, yeah, she didn't know what day of the week it was, but she knew where she lived. Therefore,
Jesus.
the bitch knew.
Yeah.
Sorry, bitch. Homegirl at the auction, after fighting this, money gone fighting it.
Yeah.
Money gone because she can't really work. She got to take care of mom.
Yeah.
In court, they tried to make this bitch look like a greedy ass bitch that just wanted money from her parents. It's not hard to do. She didn't have anything.
Right.
You know, at one point, she used some of her mom's savings to get mental help. She was seeing a therapist because she was so stressed out.
Yeah.
They're like, see, she's just trying to live lavish. Fuck her.
Jesus.
Anyway, at the auction, she's handing out flyers to people. Please don't bid on this house. Please don't bid on this house.
Yeah.
One person comes in there with a Bluetooth headset and a folding table. She hands her the flyer. The lady says, I don't have time for this shit. House bid comes up. I think she got it for like $300,000
Yeah.
or $330,000.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was actually the amount she got it for. Lady goes back home. You know, it's just a matter of time.
Right.
A letter gets put on her door, and a couple weeks after that or a month after that, says they don't want to take the house. Call them up. She calls them up. It's the company that now owns the home. And they say, well, look, we don't really want to take the house if you live there. We'll let you pay us rent.
Ooh.
Okay,
shit.
well, what's rent?
Yeah.
$2,400 a month. Huh.
Damn.
I was paying $600.
Yeah.
That's what the mortgage payment was on this, was $600. You want me to pay 4 times the mortgage payment to rent? Yeah. Well, I can't get that right now. I've actually put in thousands of dollars of upgrades. We put a new sprinkler system in. We put a new water heater in. We put a new oven in and stove in. And they're like, word, that's cool. So that's all ours. And if you do decide to leave, that's all ours. And we'll knock off $300 for the first 3 months, but we're not going to give you a break. And we need that security deposit of $1,000.
Jesus.
That's America.
Yeah.
That's markets kicking your ass.
Yep.
That's the free market system kicking your ass. That's capitalism with a foot in your ass.
Yeah.
That's Donald Trump, Michael Bloomberg, Tom Steyer with a foot in your ass. Now you tell me, do you think a billionaire is going to stop that from happening
Hell no.
when they've profited off that from happening?
Yeah.
The Moms for Housing, that was the big reason why they went into a house that was owned by a corporation, because that's what these corporations do. They bought all those houses for pennies on the dollar
Right.
when
yeah.
the government was fire sailing them when they bailed out the banks.
Right.
So when those banks got bailed out, these investors were able to pool money together, get these houses for nothing,
Yeah.
keep the profit,
Yeah.
and not have to pay that money back,
Yeah.
and not have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
And that happened in the savings and loan scandal as well in the 80s. So when Trump pardoned Michael Milken was supposed to also pay some restitution. He got to stop paying his restitution that he owed for doing that same thing with junk bonds in the 80s. That also led to a bit of a corporate housing crisis in the sense of more corporations started buying residential property in 4-unit buildings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when as Americans we don't understand that full story,
Yeah.
it's hard to have a real informed opinion about who you're voting for, because voting for president has become a popularity contest, and
Totally.
what side are you on ism?
Totally.
Are you on the side of Trump and racism?
Mm-hmm.
Which, like my friend, it's less, he doesn't even understand the racism fully. He just knows that Trump pisses off people that he doesn't like. He didn't like Obama because he didn't want Obamacare, so he got fined $10,000 over the course of time with Obamacare because he didn't want it.
Huh.
He was like, it's my God-given right to say no if I don't want forced-place insurance. And I was like, well, don't you think it's every American's right to have free health care? He goes, yeah, of course. So listen to that.
Yeah, that's retarded.
I don't want you to make me pay for insurance. But if you're going to make it the right, I think a citizen should have insurance.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was the whole, because the argument was put to him, if you watch Fox News,
Yeah.
this motherfucker's going to make you pay. He's going to fine you if you don't.
Right.
If you're a rebel, fuck you. And Trump gave the rebels a whole bunch of fuck you to the elites. And that's still how these elites are acting in these debates. Do you want Bernie Sanders with his Trump-style fuck you to us? Or do you want more of us? Look at how smart we all are.
Mm.
We all have these Ivy League degrees. We can make plans for you like the last guy did and make you feel comfortable. But there's a lot of people that are like, fuck you.
Yeah.
So how hard was it for me to talk to that guy that was a fuck you guy,
Right.
and show him that, oh, Donald Trump is fake fuck you.
Yeah.
I mean, his fuck you to the elite establishment is real, but he is the elite establishment.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders is truly an outsider. Yeah, he wrote a book last year or 4 years ago. He got some money from it. It was a bestseller. It took him 40, 50 years in politics
Yeah.
to get to that book.
Yeah, totally.
You know, he had to live a life before he could write that book.
Yeah.
So let's not say that Bernie Sanders is part of this elite. He's not.
And he didn't come from money.
No.
He's, he...
Do you know how many elites are in Congress? Rashida Tlaib was interviewed with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar recently. And she was talking about how people in Congress on both sides of the aisle, when they had the government shutdown, didn't understand why people had to get payday loans to pay the rent. They were like, can't they just like use their credit card or just go to the bank and get a loan if it's that serious? She was like, motherfuckers don't have good credit. Motherfuckers don't have money. Motherfuckers don't have collateral.
Yeah.
Who do you think these people are that work these funky ass jobs?
Yeah.
They're so disconnected from the working class, they just don't get it. And these are supposed to be the working class representatives.
They are not.
Again, that's why I volunteer for people like Shahid.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so happy Chesa Boudin is the district attorney of San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so happy about people like the Squad. And there's so many more progressives and young people running for office that want to make a change because they're like, look, Bernie Sanders showed me where my voice was.
Yeah.
And he started a real movement. That's why Boots Riley, I don't know if you saw Boots Riley's super long post about why he's voting for the first time ever.
No.
Because he's like, Bernie Sanders started a movement. His whole campaign is about movements. Because Bernie Sanders knows, I can't just wave a magic wand and get health care for all. I mean, it's going to take all of us. If you think getting me into office is going to be tough, wait till you want to see what it's going to take to get free college working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the way Bernie has started these movements, this ripple effect throughout the country, where people want to get involved, and not just in electoral politics, but in movement making to make a change, to tell the elites that we are no longer going to let you stand on our necks.
Yeah.
And that's why I got so upset with my friend that was just happy with these shirts with black people's names on them, and they fucking applaud when basketball players fucking turn their shirts inside out and all that other bullshit. It's like, it's not doing anything.
It's not enough. It's not that it's nothing, but it's not enough.
Colin Kaepernick had a moment
Yeah.
where he could have started a real movement,
Yeah.
and unfortunately it became kind of about him.
Yeah, that's true.
And that man sacrificed everything.
Yeah.
And it sucks
Yeah.
to sacrifice everything. And he's done a lot. He's definitely done a lot. He does a lot. Again, he's a complicated figure. He's not all great. He's not all bad, I don't think.
Yeah.
But again, we don't see movements.
Yeah.
The Moms for Housing was a movement. They said it when they got evicted. For that minute they got evicted, they were like, we knew this might happen, but we wanted to start a movement.
Yeah.
We wanted to get this into the conversation.
I've never really seen this many people in my lifetime get behind a presidential candidate and like actually, heard about people knocking on doors and cold calling people and actually volunteering like that. I mean, I don't know if you, not for a presidential candidate.
Obama.
Was it?
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
And maybe I just didn't see it.
Everybody was out for Obama.
Yeah.
Because we thought that was the hope and change. I mean, Obama campaigned on hope and change.
I know people were about it, but
more people voted, more black people voted. It was all about hope and change, and people got real fired up. And then this last election, there was no hope.
No.
Hillary Clinton, for a lot of us, did not represent us.
No.
And Donald Trump definitely didn't represent us. And I think a lot of people just felt he's too stupid to be president. And you want to go, did you guys forget 8 years of Bush Jr.?
Right.
You literally forgot 8 years of Bush Jr. What the fuck do you think they were saying when he was running? He's too stupid.
Yeah.
No one's going to vote for that guy. Why would they not?
Yeah.
Why would people not vote for Donald Trump? He's pro wrestling personified. Why do you think pro wrestling gets these huge TV contracts? Because fucking only people in Alabama watch it? That's an arrogant way to look at shit.
Maybe because he's a train wreck and people can't look away. And he's just
he gives a middle
character.
He gives a middle finger to the establishment. First and foremost.
In some ways, but I still think he's a puppet. He's still
To who though? You haven't told me to who.
I mean, shit. I don't know. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I guess if I can't back that up, it sounds kind of ignorant, but I don't think that he's making all of these decisions on his own.
I do, because they're crazy.
Some of them are.
They just don't make any sense.
Yeah, some of them are, but why? I mean, yeah, I don't know. Why would he peel back environmental regulations?
Because it's money to be made.
For who? For him?
Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, the emoluments was never part of the impeachment, which pissed a lot of people off. Yeah. Emoluments is like when you're president, you can't have an industry where you make money on.
Right.
And not to say that
I thought that was going to be the thing that got him out, and they didn't even fucking bring it up.
And that has a lot to do with politics.
Yeah.
Like, I can't piss people off on the other side of the aisle because there might be a bill I want to pass, and I'm going to need that red state congressman to sign off on this bill that I want to pass. Mm-hmm. So that's politics. And Pelosi tried to play politics way too much and not listen to the people. And that's why she's going to lose her seat.
Yeah.
You look at rolling back regulations, environmental policy, putting like people that were on boards of oil companies in charge of the EPA, people that were on boards of Boeing in the FAA, and not really regulating those planes that went off and killed those two Boeing jets, the 737, whatever they were called, and the 380 some people died. Like everyone died on both of those planes.
Yeah.
Business comes in and lobbies to take out regulation.
Yeah.
And in the end, the average citizen doesn't understand how that works fully and to have some sort of understanding, they just start hating politicians, which is somewhat fair, but it's not a whole picture.
Sure.
The people that have come in to like fight against your best interest to deregulate everything so they can have a few accidents and still make all that money are fighting to get people on these boards or just deregulate an industry altogether.
Yeah.
So, there's people that we know that say stupid shit like, oh, it's all the same. It's like, I get that there's things that are bipartisan, and I agree, but it's not done in the same manner. Yeah. Again, to say Obama started child separation is not to say Obama exacerbated it the way Trump did.
Totally. Obama
did deport a lot of people, but again, it wasn't handled the same way. So you can't say they're all the same. They're not. Bill Clinton and George Bush Jr. aren't the same person.
Yeah.
Dwight Eisenhower and Donald Trump aren't the same person. You had a 90-some% top marginal tax rate during the Eisenhower administration. Republicans. Mm-hmm. So how can I say Republicans are all the same?
Right.
Is Herbert Hoover Ronald Reagan?
Right.
No. It's never that simple.
Yeah.
There's things that both parties do, but it's never that fucking simple to just boil it down. And I think people always want it boiled it down to the simplest. Okay, well, they're all the same. They're all crooks. I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's just frustration because I've definitely felt like that in the past.
We all have.
Feeling like your vote doesn't matter because it's all a big
the electoral college,
and the electoral college and everything. So I mean, I don't agree with them. I get where they're coming from. I get how you can feel that way. That no one in politics has your best interest in mind because it definitely feels like that sometimes.
There's a lot of truth to that because you're not a donor.
Yeah.
When Citizens United became a thing and money in politics is a thing, then the people can't donate to their candidate.
Sure.
When Bernie Sanders is raising all this money from waitresses and teachers, and I'm giving Bernie Sanders money,
totally. Yeah,
and I had 43 cents in my account this morning.
Oh, shit.
And I'm giving Bernie Sanders $10. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did too.
When he's getting all those little donations from all these people, that's the will of the people. Yeah. How deflated will the people feel if he doesn't get the nomination because of super delegates?
Right. Totally.
Or what if he loses the election, but he has the popular vote like Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
People aren't going to understand. Or the same thing happened to Al Gore. You win the popular vote and you lose the electoral college. So, people start they're all crooks, or it's all the cognitive dissonance starts to kick in.
It's already been decided, and
it's just like when you said he's a puppet. It's like to who? Who is his master? That's the problem with dude. He tries to give so many people so much that he ends up fucking himself. Remember the tariffs?
Yeah.
The wall.
Yeah, sure.
Is all about him trying to fulfill an insane campaign promise.
Yeah. He
hasn't done anything.
No.
A lot of the things he's taking credit for were done in the last administration.
Totally.
He talks so much shit about, well, if you're a president and the stock market plummets 1,000 points, you need to get your ass out of there, whatever the fuck he said. And the stock market is constantly plummeting right now.
Yeah. He tweeted about that, saying that the stock market looks good to me or some shit just the other day.
The stock market's volatility has more to do with deregulation, Reagan-era deregulation, enabling companies to buy their stock back, inflating stock price.
Right.
So now you have rich people playing a boom or bust game, and we're all going to be left holding the bag once again, and that's a huge fucking problem that no one's talking about. So when Bernie Sanders is asked a dumbass question,
Yeah.
on the debate stage. As a democratic socialist, how are you going to handle the economy that's doing all right per Donald Trump? And when Bernie Sanders answers that question, well, it's doing good for people like Mike Bloomberg. I thought that was a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
Because he's explaining that it's not doing well for a lot of us.
Not
Wealth
for
and
our class, the middle and lower class.
we live not just in California, but we live in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
We can walk to Pandora. We can walk to Bandcamp. We can go across the bridge and walk to Twitter.
Yep.
We've been to the Facebook campus. You and I have been to LinkedIn.
Yeah, Google.
I worked at Square.
Yeah.
But how many homeless encampments do we have to pass through to get there?
Oh, probably just as many as businesses, as large businesses.
Wealth inequality is on the rise out here.
Yeah.
Food deserts.
It's insane.
It's insane.
I think people in other parts of the country, maybe because it's not, either it's not as in your face, or maybe you don't have the homeless problem that we have here. Those people don't see that. But I mean, it's so in our face here that, I mean, I don't know how you can't see that it's a problem. You know, it's a huge fucking problem.
But we also live in a society where we blame the people.
Totally.
And we don't blame the system that makes the people.
Yeah.
And that's my problem.
Yeah.
And this is coming from a person, I lived in the room that we're doing this broadcast in for years.
Yeah.
And these homeless people were my neighbors.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that far removed. I always feel like I'm not that far. I'm like one fight away
Yeah.
to be right next to him again.
Yeah, one rough month and you're out there with them.
And you and I both worked here. I don't know if you had to do it as extreme as I have. I have had to walk people down the street, not customers here, but other people in the camp because they done pissed off somebody like, hey, can you walk me down here because I done pissed this person off. They said they're going to kill me.
Oh, Jesus.
You know, that's not a fun walk.
No.
You got to go make peace with people like that. But that's my reality living here.
Yeah, totally.
I get to see the waste of capitalism because this, to me, is the garbage can. This is the bottom of the garbage can living down here.
Totally.
All the trash is the same. IKEA furniture.
Oh, yeah.
Walmart and H&M clothes everywhere.
And, yeah, just to expand on that, like, he's not joking. There is so much trash in the street. We've seen people drop off boats.
Boats. I had to move a boat.
Like, I've seen that like 4 times probably.
Maybe I'll find that picture of me on the boat because there was a boat in front of the door and we couldn't open the door because there was a boat there.
Yeah.
A boat.
Yeah. A garbage boat in the middle of the fucking street.
And that wasn't the first boat.
Yeah.
I saw about 4 or 5 boats.
Yep. We've seen a lot of cars on fire down here.
Yep.
I've seen at least probably 4 or 5.
On multiple occasions, I've had to move a washing machine out of the street to drive up West Grand to turn on the freeway. I've had to move a washing machine out of the street. That's living in the garbage can.
And by the way, those horrible smells that sometimes waft over here, that's people in the homeless camp burning the trash.
Yep.
Because they're burning this, IKEA furniture or whatever that I'm sure is full of toxic chemicals. And
of course.
They're burning that shit to keep warm over there because that's all they have.
And where are they going to put the trash? Like, people don't, like, we can say it as much as we want to say it, but people literally, like those guys that say, I'll come clean out your attic. Yeah. I'll come clean out your attic for $100. Those dudes dump that attic trash here.
They do.
And they don't shred it. I remember one day, remember that band from Utah, Melodramus?
Yeah. They're from Seattle, I thought.
They're from Utah, but they live in Seattle now.
Seattle. Yeah, those guys are awesome.
They were recording with Grammy Award-winning producer Matt Weiniger.
Yeah, that's right.
We were walking to Brown Sugar Kitchen when Brown Sugar Kitchen was around the corner.
Yeah,
and someone probably cleaned out an attic, but they threw away all these letters. They don't shred shit, by the way.
Yeah.
And so when you see the bags of trash that they just dump, homeless people go through the bags of trash looking for treasure.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gets strewn everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it was like pictures and letters. And these dudes were just reading letters as we were walking. We got to the restaurant. This one dude was reading these letters, and it was like a husband divorcing his wife.
Oh, damn.
And we were reading all the letters about, that was the correspondence. That's how old it was.
Wow.
Like all your information. I've seen so many IDs.
Yeah.
I've seen so many old credit cards. It's like, dude, your ID got stolen? Yeah. Yeah. Because that asshole did not dump that shit in the dump. It's in the middle of Wood Street.
Yeah.
And we're selling your information.
Yeah.
And feeling nothing. But there's no one really talking to the true, the poor. There's no one that has a plan for a war on poverty.
No.
It's a more of a, I'm trying to fight for more status quo.
I mean, one good start is paying a living wage, because a lot of these people, people do have jobs.
Yes. Another big start is housing is a human right.
Yeah.
Totally. And when we look at, there's 4 houses for every homeless person here vacant.
Yeah.
Housing is a human right. Is when we start looking at the world that way, just our system that way, then we can really start to have changes. And that's why when you see people go, Bernie Sanders isn't really a socialist, and these people aren't socialists, or maybe they are like super far left, cosmopolitan Marxists, and they just want to nitpick. I'm like, but do you understand that it starts a conversation when he says he's a democratic socialist about a better society?
Yeah.
About the social bonds that make a society, making those stronger.
Totally.
I want healthcare to not be a burden.
Yeah.
And 500,000 people go into bankruptcy a year because of it. How many people die because they can't afford it? We have people dying because they're not using the correct amount of insulin. They're trying to ration their insulin because we don't have controls on how much money the healthcare industry, or I should say the pharmaceutical industry, can charge on things like insulin.
Yeah. No, we need better social systems. You should not lose your house because you got sick.
No.
You shouldn't.
Or you shouldn't lose your house, like the story I told, because you had to take care of a relative that got fucked over by an industry that wasn't regulated.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You shouldn't lose everything because you took a payday loan out that you didn't know the $1,000 you borrowed is a $10,000 payback over 4 years because of interest charges that just don't make sense.
Yeah.
You can lose everything.
Yeah.
The way the system works now.
Totally.
Go to school, get bankrupt, but you have to go to school to get a job.
Yeah.
Huh. That sounds like a non-win situation.
Yeah.
I want to go to work, but I can't because I have no child care. I know a woman with 3 kids. She would love to work.
Yeah.
She's fighting for her dude right now to pay some sort of support, and he's going to do what he can, but he's fighting with the court. Nobody's winning right now.
That's a common situation. I know someone in the same boat.
She can't go to work because she got 3 kids.
Yeah.
And if she is going to get any work, what the fuck is she going to do?
Right.
She doesn't have a degree, doesn't really have any skills. What the fuck is she going to do? Someone comes along and says, I want to give you free child care. Oh, so I can go to work and have shit? Okay. Thanks. That's in everyone's best interest.
Totally.
Why would we fight against our own best interests? And I think that's my big question when I watch these debates and I watch these people talk, and then I listen to, or people come at me afterwards with nonsense. I mean, there's a few friends I have that we've been having some really good discussions about not just who's going to be president, but the movements that have to follow to keep this pushing forward, to truly keep democratizing this power.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just want the status quo. I've seen people be like, we just can't have Bernie Sanders, but we have to figure out who do we want as our presidential candidate. And I'm like, if you don't want Bernie Sanders and you're not sure about Elizabeth Warren, what is Pete Buttigieg going to tell you that's going to make you feel comfortable with him running this country?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, what has he done? He's a shitty mayor. He was a shitty mayor of a little college town.
Yeah.
He fucked up that little college town.
Yeah.
Black people hate him in South Bend because he was such a shitty mayor.
So, yeah, why would you want that guy?
If you can't win a state election, he tried to run for, was it treasurer, and lost
Yeah.
by a lot. This guy can't win a state election, and the media has propped him up to be something he's not.
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg, do you remember Family Ties? Are you old enough to remember that TV show Family Ties with Michael J. Fox?
Yeah.
He's Alex P. Keaton.
Okay.
He is the epitome of Alex P. Keaton. Pete Buttigieg's dad was a Marxist. He's a Gramsci scholar. He translated
Really?
fucking Gramsci.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But much like Alex P. Keaton in fucking Family Ties, how do you rebel against your rebellious parents? You become right wing. So even though Buttigieg is a Democrat, which, that say what you will about that, he's pretty far fucking right of his dad.
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg apparently went to Harvard and shared a room with Cornel West
No shit.
because Cornel West was friends with his dad.
No shit.
Word.
Huh.
And that's Alex P. Keaton.
I don't even know what to do with that information.
That's Alex P. Keaton. How do I rebel against my rebellious parent? Right? Kamala Harris's dad was a Marxist. She was not a very good district attorney.
Yeah.
So, what is Pete Buttigieg going to tell you? What is Amy Klobuchar going to tell you that's going to make you go, maybe Amy Klobuchar is my choice for president?
Yeah.
She's got a spotty record as district attorney in Minneapolis, going after a lot of the Somalis that live there for some spice they smoke that's like the equivalent of tobacco, and was like prosecuting them left and right for that. Never trust a, they say never trust a prosecutor never trust a person who wants to be a prosecutor because they just want to be president, and they'll do what they need to do to get into a higher office.
Yeah.
And she's definitely trying to do that. But what platform do they really have? They keep telling you, I'm all for Americans and I know what Americans want. How the hell can you know what Americans want?
Yeah.
You're not even being asked questions by the demos.
Yeah.
You're being asked questions by a person that works for mainstream media that gets paid by other corporations. So
Reading the questions that they were given.
yeah. But if Chuck Todd is asking you a question and Chuck Todd's station has a lot of advertisements from the fossil fuel industry,
Yeah.
how sincere do you think that question is when it comes to really caring about the people?
Right.
Why are these people why are millionaires who are paid by billionaires now a mouthpiece for the average person?
Yeah.
I don't even understand how that fucking works.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that works. And then I'm watching the debate, and they keep using these red baiting, red scare Cold War tactics. Bernie, you said that you liked Castro. Okay, well.
He's like, I did?
Well, he's got to kind of, I don't want to say double back on things he said, but he's got to denounce a more nuanced view on Cuba.
Right.
And I think he handled it the best way you can handle it when you're running for president, when you're running for president, you can't really hit them with and you don't have, an hour and a half to give a long speech about.
Yeah. Well, you got like 2.5 minutes or something.
You have a minute.
A minute.
I think a minute and a half.
Right.
And he answered the question pretty good about, despotic regimes. He's like, I don't like dictators, but the health, and a lot of people may not know this, highest literacy rate in the world, I believe, is Cuba. Yeah. Every child gets free schooling in Cuba. They have vocational school and college, I think, is all covered. Everyone has health care.
Socialized health care and education.
Yes. They have a huge social safety net because that's they are a socialist country. So 85%, and this is 2003 numbers, I don't know the numbers now, are homeowners. And then people that aren't homeowners pay like 10% of their salary as like a rent. But there's not really a rentier class. There's not really a land-owning class like there is here. Yeah. This isn't to say that everything Fidel Castro did was noble and great.
No, and I know you're not saying everything's fine and dandy down there, but that is quite interesting that, the literacy rate is so high. And it doesn't seem like homelessness is as big of a problem there as it is here.
No, because the way they look at that stuff is way different. The way they handle it is way different. They're also too. Castro helped out a lot of African nations. Castro, and this is per Nelson Mandela, pretty much was like the catalyst to ending apartheid by sending troops to overthrow the South African military in Namibia, which freed Namibia from South Africa and pretty much led to the ending of apartheid. This is per Nelson Mandela, and if we want, I'll put a link up to the video of Mandela pretty much telling Castro, "Thank you, and you need to come to your homeland of South Africa, and we love you here." And Mandela did catch heat for that because the Western media wants to demonize socialism and communism as the same Stalinist, Tsarist Russia,
right.
Castro imprisoning gay people, and that's all it is. And that's definitely, it's part of the history. You have to learn from the flaws. You can't just look at the good parts of it. You do have to learn from the flaws of it.
Sure.
What not to do. But we also can't look at these regimes with such a closed off lens where we don't understand what people like Bernie were trying to say in their critique of these places.
Sure. Yeah.
Because he found some of the great things that Cuba did. Because we always forget, like I was telling you, Cuba is 90 miles away from the United States. At one point in time, we pretty much kept that country alive. That embargo happens, we shut off their financial valve. They're still around.
Yeah.
And at one point, even Russia couldn't help them. They're still around.
Totally.
So there's some lessons to be learned on both sides. There's definitely some shit not to do.
Yeah.
But there's some things looking and go, Some of the best doctors in the world come from Cuba, and Castro definitely sent those doctors out there to help with like AIDS pandemics all over the country.
Yeah.
It's insane when you see people try to look at it from such a closed off lens. This is from Bill Fletcher Jr., talking to Amy Goodman about Fidel Castro's relationship with Nelson Mandela.
Okay.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Amy, because there was a special relationship that existed between the Cuban Revolution and Africa for almost the beginning. The Cubans were very supportive of the Algerian struggle against the French, which succeeded in 1962. They went on to support the various anti-colonial movements in Africa, including in particular the anti-Portuguese movements in Guyana and Angola and Mozambique. And they were unquestioning in their support for the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. It's the Angolan struggle that receives a lot of attention, and one of the things that was not understood at the time by many of us in the United States, including many of us on the left, was that when Cuban troops went to Angola, they did not go at the behest of the Soviet Union. In fact, the Soviet Union was not in favor of Cuban troops going there. The Cubans went there out of a sense of solidarity. I mean, they actually believed in solidarity. And they went there to stop the invasion that was in the process of taking place between by the South African apartheid troops and their allies in the FNLA and the UNITA. And so this relationship has been very, very strong. Again, complicated legacy.
Yeah.
And even towards the end, Castro called himself out for some fucked up things that he did. He acknowledged. Not to say that he was perfect and not to say that everything he did was just and right, but he definitely acknowledged that there are flaws.
Sure.
There were definitely big I'm sorry's.
Sure.
And I'm not going to walk around with a Castro shirt or a Che Guevara shirt on tomorrow, but I understand that those legacies are complicated.
Yeah.
People want to find who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And I'm more like, it's a little more complicated.
It's not so simple.
Than Star Wars.
Yeah.
No one's walking around like Darth Vader.
No.
Unless you're the U.S. Because the U.S. to a lot of people are just Darth Vader.
Yeah.
We are an empire. We are technologically advanced. And we literally take out democratically elected leaders of countries that have either resources we want or we just don't like the leader.
Totally.
So before we start asking Bernie Sanders, is he going to be friends with Castro? And we have two presidents, right? Trump, Obama was decent with Putin. I don't think Putin liked Obama. Didn't Bill Clinton know Putin? Bill Clinton, didn't he brag about the fact that he put Boris Yeltsin in office? Bragged about the fact.
I think so, yeah.
That we control that election so much he put Boris Yeltsin in office.
Yeah.
But we think some dudes with some posts on Facebook changed the election. Right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump brags about hanging out with Mohammed bin Salman, who had Jamal Khashoggi killed. Donald Trump just doesn't really trip. We are in bed with the Saudis. That's a horrible regime. When MBS gave women the right to drive, think about that for a second. Just drive. He imprisoned women that were like fighting for that right. They didn't get free once he gave it to them.
Yeah.
He didn't want them speaking out against the government. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's a government that we're cool with. We're okay with that. We're okay with Duterte in the Philippines killing thousands of his own people because they use drugs. Killing them. Having them killed. That's totally fine to be cool with that dude. Trump is cool with Bolsonaro, who is trying his best to sell off the Amazon.
Yeah.
That shit's on fire.
Yeah. It's fucked up.
But you want to ask Bernie Sanders about him having a critique of Fidel Castro, saying, well, their healthcare system is pretty right on, and they can all read. Maybe something we should aspire to here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that means that you want to have bread lines and everywhere is Stalinist Russia or Soviet Union. I just don't get it. How people can be so blind to the authoritarian regimes that we are in bed with currently and have been for administrations, but all of a sudden this person says a word that you don't really understand, and that word being socialist.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you think Red Dawn.
Yeah, people think socialism is communism, and they think that communism is bad because that's what we've been told forever.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Rocky IV.
So,
it's all Rocky IV and Red Dawn.
yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all Red Dawn and Rocky IV.
Years of propaganda.
Maybe we should put a list of like propaganda movies. Raw Deal with Schwarzenegger. Remember that? Him and Jim Belushi. Was that the one? Him and Jim Belushi?
I don't know. Or like you were talking about the movies where all the bad guys were terrorists or Palestinians.
Oh, dude, hell yeah. Con Air.
Con Air, yeah.
Delta Force? No, they weren't Palestinian. What was it? There another one. There was like Palestinian bad guys. Pretty much any terrorist movie, any terrorist. If a plane's getting hijacked, there's a Palestinian.
Yeah.
A Palestinian's hijacking the shit out of your plane. And a Russian is definitely going to be the enemy of your 80s movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening to us rant. Please, if you haven't done it already, there'll be a link in the description. Become a patron. You get bonus footage, live streaming, merchandise, Alex's firstborn.
How many kids am I gonna have?
You get to use a magic 8-ball to figure out how many kids Alex is gonna have. Also, please keep paying attention to the channel because we have more shows coming up. Fameless with Chris Riggins was a lot of fun. If you haven't heard it, it's silly.
He's a hilarious dude.
It's the opposite of this. It's not serious like this at all.
He's been a guest on our show in the past.
Go back and listen to last week's episode and even the week before that. There's going to be more barbershop sessions coming up with even a few more really fun people. And I think we might make that whole show all bonus content. Again, next month, I'm so stoked. We have Prison Abolitionists coming on. A friend of mine that was a consultant on the Birth of a Nation remake is coming on. There's a lot of cool shit happening in podcast land. Also in Bitter Lake land, we have some new music that hopefully will be coming out next month. Yep. We'll be playing some shows and doing some touring in April and May that I'm pretty stoked for. And then in a week, we're throwing our first Bitter Lake Presents show.
Oh, yeah, shit.
We have to make a flyer for that show real quick.
Well, we can't tell you guys where it is because it's a
secret show. But LAL.
You can always send us a message if you're in the area, and we'll give you the address.
We're gonna start promoting the shit out of this show secretly. But LAL from Toronto and Chris Riggins' band, which is a band of fucking like all stars. Like his drummer plays with Snarky Puppy.
Oh, cool.
Like that dude Dame.
Yeah.
That like broke your cymbal.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a sick, chill show. Like we're throwing shows. You'll get access to the shows we throw. Bonus content. Alex's firstborn. What else can we throw in? One of Nick's testicles.
One of those things was a joke.
Thank you guys very much. And here is a song that you hopefully will be hearing shortly.